In this video, I'm going to be talking about the different maps that we have in Flourish. And Flourish really has a bunch of different maps that you can use, and they're all sort of slightly different and do different things and are good at visualizing, different types of data. So I'm going to go through them so that you have a better idea the next time you want to go and make a map of something, which one you should choose. So I'm starting here on the template chooser page because this is sort of where you choose which map you would be using. So the first one here is our projection map, which is sort of your basic point and region, shaded regions map. So we have a bunch of different starting points here that you can use, like, Europe, US counties, US congressional districts, US states, sort of different UK ones as well. But you can also upload your own data to this map, which we'll talk about it in a different sort of more specific to the projection map video. But you can basically make a map of any sort of area in the world by uploading your own data here. But this is definitely just your basic map. So if I go in here, you'll see this is just a shaded map of US congressional districts, I believe. Or counties, sorry. And then you can also see there are some points on the map as well. So you can mix and match there with those. So if we go back here, the other sort of map we have, which is not like the 3D maps, which I'll talk about in a second, are this connections globe. So if I show this to you now, this is really good for visualizing connections between two different parts of the world. And it's 3D and it's cool. It's sort of one of the original classic Flourish templates, which are very sort of visually striking when someone sees them on a web page. And you can kind of play around with it here. It's pretty cool. Now, go back again. So after those two, we have a series of maps which are all kind of based on the same map tiles. And they all do slightly different things, but I'm just going to show you the marker map right now. But just know that the marker map is here, which is good for sort of, you can use it as sort of like a locator map, or you can use it with small amounts of data up to a couple thousand rows. But the other maps that we have that are sort of like these and are built on the same tiles and are also 3D and sort of zoomable, and you can kind of turn around in them and stuff, which I'll show you in a second, is this arc map, which is kind of like a connections globe, but it's flat. And then this point map, which is really good for displaying lots of different, large numbers of rows. There's also sort of an optional time component as well. And then this 3D region map, which lets you kind of do the same sort of choropleth or region shading that you do on a normal map, but you can use elevation to visualize that as well. So I'm just going to go in here just to show you what these look like. So this is the marker map. So they're these really awesome 3D map tiles, and you can kind of zoom in and look around the map. You can also kind of pan at different angles, which is really awesome. And then there's also this optional inset map here in the corner, which you can add geometry for. But yeah, these are really powerful in stories. In this video, I'm going to be talking more in depth about the projection map template. So I'm starting here in the template chooser, and here's the projection map. It's sort of the second template that you get in the template chooser because it is one of our most frequently used templates. So I'm going to be talking more in depth about what you can sort of do with the projection map and explaining some of the features of the projection map. But before I even get into that, I just wanted to start here in the template chooser so that you can sort of see what your options are before you even get into the template. So as with any Flourish template, we have these starting points for the projection map. And when it comes to projection map, the starting points are sort of different maps of different places in the world. So we have some Argentinian maps, Brazil, Europe, quite a few UK-based maps, a bunch of US maps, a London map, a world map. And if the map that you want to make is sort of is one of these, then you're sort of set to go right away. You can just click on it and get going. But if it's not, especially for sort of non-UK or US or more local news organizations who might be making more sort of local maps of a single city, that's not London, you're going to need to use this blank starting point. So this is sort of a blank projection map that you have to upload your own geometry into. And I'm going to show you both, sort of how to do both things. So I'm going to use one of these starting points to sort of show you how the projection map works, and then I'm going to also show you how to upload your own data and talk about the requirements for that. So imagine I wanted to come here and I actually wanted to make a map of something that shows the boroughs in London. So I'd click on this and I'd get to something that looks like this. This is a map of London's boroughs. And the way the projection map works is that it has two different layers. So if we look over here on the settings panel, if I do that, so we have a points layer, which I'll enable, and we have a regions layer. So you can upload both sort of point level data to the projection map, and you can upload sort of region or geometric data to the projection map. When you use a starting point, there's already going to be both geometry, so the geometry in this case of London and its boroughs in there. There's also always going to be some sort of points data. In this case, it's kind of almost dummy data of like the center point in each borough. But for example, on our US states maps, it's always like the major US cities. And I'm going to hop over the data sheet to sort of show you how this works. So for the regions, there's always going to be this geometry column, and this is where the actual sort of coordinates and shapes for these regions that are being drawn are contained. So if you use a starting point that's been pre-made by us, you never really want to touch this this column. You're just going to be sort of working with this stuff. But beyond the geometry, just so I can show you, so if I get rid of this setting, you can see the geometry goes away over here on the right. So it needs that geometry, those polygons or multi-polygons, to be able to draw the map. And then after that, we have like normal things that you would expect for column settings. So we have a name, in this case it's the borough name, and then we have this value setting is what the map, the sort of geometric regions part of the map is being colored by. So in this case, it's being colored by this C column, which is the percentage of pupils in that borough who, so sort of like school-age kids in that borough who do not have English as their first language. Highest here in Tower Hamlets, which is interesting. This sort of value here can be either a continuous sort of number column, or it can also be a categorical column. So this, for example, D column would be a categorical value because we have inner or outer London, so whether or not the borough is inner or outer London. So if I go to the regions layer, you'll notice here that the color type is continuous and sequential. We have a bunch of different sort of coloring options. If I wanted to change this, I could change it to binned, and there's a couple of different options for the binned color palette type. There's also this diverging option, so if you had sort of negative and positive values, you can do that. But I wanted to show this to you because to change the value to a categorical value, to color by a categorical value, sometimes the thing that people miss is that you actually have to change both the value here in the data sheet, so if I change this from C to D, but you also have to change this color type to categorical. Otherwise, the template doesn't really know what to do with the categorical data that it's reading from the data sheet. So that's something to definitely be aware of. We get a lot of sort of help me emails from people who are doing everything right, but they're not actually changing the color palette. And then in this case, you get this color picker where you can sort of choose choose a color palette like you would with any sort of like normal Flourish chart. And there's a bunch of other options for this regions layer. So there's sort of pop-up options. You can add shadows and stuff like that if you want. Yeah, and if you want to add metadata, you can always add that with the metadata column setting. So now on my hover, I'm getting that peoples with non-English first language again. So that's the regions layer. Now I'm going to move over to the points layer and explain how that works. So the points layer is always going to be, it needs latitude and longitude. So you can see here that we have a latitude and longitude columns, and those are sort of put into the correct column settings here. I would always tell you to make sure you're getting the right one, because we have longitude first and then latitude. So sometimes people do the wrong one and they're like, why are my dots not showing up? And then beyond that, there's a bunch of different options. So there's always this value, which is what the dots are being sized by. And the name column is just sort of, you can get rid of it if you don't need it. It's just a name column. We can also change the color of the dots. If you had some sort of other categorical option for the dots, you could change it and add the color. I just added the name to show you that they can change. Oops. Ooh. And then there's also a metadata option as well. So on the points layer, you can do sort of similar things you can do in the regions layer. Let me go back and make this color some sort of category. You're also going to get this same sort of color palette picker that you would get anywhere in Flourish. That's only if you have sort of categorical data for the color. If not, you can do things like change this to some hideous green color, make them completely opaque if you want, make them really, really light so you can barely see them. There's all different sort of options to customize the map. So you can also do things like add headers, rows, and everything like that. You can turn off the legends. You can not show size legends. There's all these different options that you would expect in a Flourish template. But so this is sort of a normal, easy to make. You don't have to do very much. You just have to sort of customize your settings and you're kind of ready to go. The more complicated option is this blank one, which I'm going to show you right now. So the first thing to know is that geometry should be uploaded to the regions layer here. See how it's completely blank, as a GeoJSON file. So GeoJSON file, which will either have .geojson or .json as the file extension. And it needs to be an unprojected GeoJSON file. We have a bunch of tips sort of on our blog posts about the projection map for making GeoJSON files from things like shape files and whatnot, but just so you know, it should be an unprojected GeoJSON file. You'll get a bunch of errors and your map kind of won't show up if it's not a GeoJSON file and if it's not an unprojected GeoJSON file. So in this case, I have a sort of good, clean, unprojected GeoJSON file, and I'm going to upload it and do overwrite current sheet, and there we go. So this is a map of Chicago sort of neighborhoods, and you'll see a lot of familiar things. So the first column is it's pulling out this multi-polygon, and that's the geometry column, and that's what's actually drawing the map. Then my names are here in the community column, and then area is currently this C value column, and it's all the same sort of number, so it's kind of drawing the entire map the same color. But there you go. It's kind of as simple as that. Something else that you should know is that unlike in other Flourish sort of templates, this datasheet can merge data files.
So if I have this, and I can actually delete all of those rows. If I had this was my sort of what Flourish read the GeoJSON as, but I wanted to add other sort of other data so that I can sort of color this as a choropleth. Flourish can actually match sort of rows together, which is really cool. So I'm going to show you how that works. So after you upload your geometry, the next thing you want to do is click this import your data again. And this may feel a bit weird the first time you do it, but I promise you it will work. And then I have another CSV here on my computer that has the same community names with a bunch of other sort of data about those neighborhoods. So I'm going to click this, and this is the most important part. Instead of overwrite current sheet, I want to click merge with current sheet. And then I'm going to choose the community, the sort of names that should match each other. So these are both community area names. And these are just the first couple, so it doesn't have to be in the same order. This is just giving you a bit of a preview of what the names are. If it's not in the same order, it's totally fine. It should still be able to match them and merge the sort of data sheets together. So I'm going to click merge, and it's telling me this is great. It's telling me that 77 rows were imported. That's perfect because it's not telling me that any were not matched. If there are some rows that don't have a match in the other sheet, it will tell you here that it threw them away. But it didn't throw any away because they match perfectly, so that's great. And now you can look in here, and instead of empty columns, I have all this other information about each of these neighborhoods, which are things that I could sort of add to my map. So, but instead of this sort of area column, which I don't need, it's kind of useless, I'm going to get rid of it, and now I'm going to instead color this by this D column, households below the poverty line, and you can see over here how this switched. So now I'm coloring the map by the percentage of households that are below the poverty line. So that's pretty awesome. You can also, it's definitely worth pointing out that you can also do multiple sort of different values here. So if I wanted to show a bunch of different things on one map, say I wanted to show households below the poverty line and also the unemployment rate, I can add that to the value, and now I have this drop-down menu where I can click between the two values, which is pretty cool. So instead of having to sort of make a story to put all these together, you can just do it all in the same map. That's pretty awesome. And the last thing I want to show you was just importing CSV data again of point data. So I have another CSV here that I'm going to upload to the points sheet, and it has a bunch of different latitude and longitude for sort of homicides, I believe, in Chicago in 2017. So let's see. You can see here that this isn't drawing. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Oh, so this is perfect. So you don't see any points here because in my data sheet I have latitude then longitude, but here in Flourish the default is to have longitude before the latitude. So all I have to do is switch these and my points should start to show up. Oh, here we go. Sorry. I didn't have anything to size the dots by, so it wasn't liking what I was giving it. But here you can see now all these dots, which are all of the different homicides that took place in Chicago over the course of a year. And I can color them by, location, type of location, or whatnot. So I think this might be the longest video in the entire series, but I think it's really important to do a video which showed you both the using a pre-made starting point and uploading your own data, because there are quite a few different places where you can sort of trip up, and I wanted to kind of point them out and make sure that you kind of have an idea of where they are so you don't make them or stumble over them. We have a really great blog post about the projection map, which actually includes another video about the projection map, which I definitely recommend watching if you're interested in making projection maps of your own. And I hope this helped.